The note was tucked under the chrome mirror of the most intimidating motorcycle on the street. A jet-black Harley-Davidson Fat Boy with the Hells Angels insignia gleaming on its tank. Jake Reaper Morrison returned from the diner to find the small piece of notebook paper covered in careful, childish handwriting. Dear Motorcycle Man, I think the bad men are hurting my teacher. She has bruises and she's scared. Nobody believes me because I'm just a kid, but I see things. Please help Miss Sarah. She's nice and she doesn't deserve to be scared. From Emma, age 8. P.S. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to touch your bike. It's very cool. Jake stood in the parking lot of Ruby's Diner in Ridgemont, Montana, reading the note 3 times. His weathered hands, scarred from years of motorcycle maintenance, bar fights, and a past he'd rather forget, held the paper gently, as if it might disintegrate. Reaper, you good? His riding brother, Tommy Wrench Collins, emerged from the diner with 2 coffees. He saw Jake's expression, and his casual demeanor shifted immediately. What's wrong? Jake handed him the note. Wrench read it, his jaw tightening. At 45, he'd been riding with the Hells Angels for 20 years, long enough to know that men like them, covered in leather and tattoos, riding loud bikes, looking like society's nightmares, weren't usually who people turned to for help. Especially not 8-year-old girls. Kid wrote this? Wrench asked. Left it on my bike. Could be nothing. Kids have active imaginations. Could be, Jake agreed. But his gut, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 2 deployments in Afghanistan and a decade in the MC, told him different. Or could be a little girl watching her teacher get hurt and nobody's listening. Wrench studied his friend. Jake had been managing the club's legitimate businesses for 2 years now, part of the Angels' slow evolution from outlaws to something more sustainable. But Jake still carried his past, former Army Ranger, former enforcer for the club, former a lot of things that left shadows in his eyes. What do you want to do? Wrench asked carefully. Jake looked across the street at Ridgemont Elementary School, its playground visible through a chain-link fence. A woman stood near the entrance, dark-haired and slim, watching as the last few students were picked up. Even from this distance, Jake could see the way she held herself. Tense, watchful, like someone waiting for the next blow. I want to find out who Miss Sarah is, Jake said quietly, and I want to know if that kid is right. Sarah Mitchell was tired. Bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. She stood outside Ridgemont Elementary and tried to ignore the ache in her ribs where Marcus had shoved her into the kitchen counter last night. It was an accident, she told herself for the 1,000th time. He didn't mean it. The bruises told a different story. So did the way she'd started flinching at sudden movements, the way she'd stopped wearing short sleeves, the way she'd perfected the art of lying. Miss Mitchell? Emma Rodriguez appeared at her elbow, her small face serious. Are you okay? Of course. Sarah's smile felt brittle. Why do you ask? You're holding your side funny, like it hurts. Sarah's heart stuttered. She dropped her hand from her ribs. I'm fine, Emma. Just sore from yoga. Emma didn't look convinced, but her mother's car pulled up before she could press further. As the girl climbed into the back seat, she looked back at Sarah with an expression far too knowing for 8 years old. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Where are you? Dinner better be ready when I get home. Her hands shook as she typed back. Leaving school now. I'll have it ready. She didn't notice the 2 men on motorcycles parked across the street, or the way one of them watched her with focused intensity. Jake followed Sarah Mitchell home, keeping 3 cars between his Harley and her sensible Toyota Camry. Wrench rode alongside him, mentally cataloging everything. The route, the neighborhood, potential exits. Sarah's house was a small ranch on the edge of town, well-maintained with flower beds and a tidy lawn, the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside. They parked 2 blocks away and walked back, staying in the shadows. Through the kitchen window, they could see Sarah moving around, preparing dinner with quick, nervous movements. Then a man entered the frame, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing business casual. He said something, and Sarah's shoulders tensed. The man moved closer, backing Sarah against the counter. His body language was aggressive, dominating. Sarah tried to move away, and he grabbed her arm, yanking her back roughly. "Son of a bitch," Jake breathed. When Sarah reappeared, she was holding her wrist, and there were tears on her face. The man sat at the table as if nothing had happened, and Sarah continued making dinner with shaking hands. Jake's fists clenched so hard his knuckles cracked. Beside him, Wrench's jaw was granite. "We calling the cops?" Wrench asked quietly. "And say what? We were stalking a teacher?" Jake shook his head. "She'd deny everything anyway. They always do it first." "So what's the play?" Jake thought of that note, of a little girl brave enough to ask a stranger for help because the adults around her weren't paying attention. "We watch," he said finally. "Document everything. Build a case so solid she can't deny it, and he can't weasel out of it." He pulled out his phone, starting to record. "And then we make sure that bastard never touches her again." Over the next 4 days, Jake and Wrench became ghosts in Sarah Mitchell's life. They documented 17 incidents of physical aggression. 3 times Marcus grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises. Jake hated surveillance work, hated the voyeuristic feeling of watching someone's private pain. But he'd learned patience in the Rangers, learned that sometimes the best way to help was to wait for the right moment. That moment came on Friday afternoon. Emma Rodriguez appeared at Jake's bike again, this time boldly walking up in broad daylight. "Are you going to help her?" He turned to find Emma standing there, her backpack nearly as big as she was, her expression fierce and frightened all at once. "Emma, right?" Jake crouched down to her level, making himself smaller, less intimidating. "You wrote me that note." "Yes." She lifted her chin. "I know I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, and my mom would be really mad, but Miss Mitchell is getting worse. Today she couldn't write on the board very well because her hand was shaking, and she wore a turtleneck even though it's warm." Jake's heart clenched. "Covering bruises?" Emma nodded, her eyes bright with tears. "I told the principal, but she said Miss Mitchell probably just bumped into something. I told my mom, but she said I shouldn't make up stories. But I'm not making it up. I see things. I pay attention. If you believe in the power of observation, in trusting your instincts, and in the courage it takes to speak up when something feels wrong, then pause for a moment. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bike Diaries. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this story will remind you that heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. "I believe you," Jake said quietly. "And you did the right thing, Emma. Sometimes adults miss important things because they're not looking close enough. But you're brave and smart. Will you help her?" Emma's voice cracked. "Please? She's the best teacher I ever had. She doesn't deserve to be hurt." Jake glanced at Wrench, who gave a small nod. "Yeah," Jake said. "We'll help her, but I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Keep being observant. If you see anything that scares you, you tell your parents, okay? And you stay away from Miss Mitchell's house. Don't try to be a hero." "But you're going to be a hero?" Jake's laugh was rough. "Kid, I'm a lot of things, but hero isn't usually one of them. Sometimes, though, you see someone who needs help, and you can't walk away." Emma threw her arms around his neck in a quick hug. "Thank you, motorcycle man." She ran off before Jake could respond. Wrench appeared at his elbow. "So what's the plan, Reaper?" Jake stood, watching Emma disappear into her mother's car. "The plan is we stop watching and start acting. Tonight." Sarah knew something was wrong the moment Marcus walked through the door. His face was flushed, his eyes slightly unfocused. He'd been drinking. "Dinner ready?" he demanded. "Almost. 5 more minutes." "I said I wanted dinner when I got home." "I know, I'm sorry. Traffic was—" "Always excuses with you." Marcus moved into the kitchen, and Sarah's heart rate spiked. She knew this pattern. "Marcus, please, let me finish cooking." "Maybe I don't want dinner. Maybe I want you to stop being so fucking useless." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with bruising force. Sarah gasped. "Marcus, you're hurting me." "Good, maybe you'll—" The doorbell rang. They both froze. Marcus's grip loosened slightly. "You expecting someone?" "No." The doorbell rang again, followed by heavy knocking. Marcus stormed toward the door. "What?" Sarah followed. Through the window she could see 2 large men in leather vests, both covered in tattoos. Marcus opened the door partway. "Can I help you?" The taller one, dark-haired, with a jagged scar along his jaw, smiled, but it was the coldest expression Sarah had ever seen. "Marcus Weber? My name's Jake Morrison. This is Tommy Collins. We're here about your situation with Miss Mitchell." Marcus's confusion turned to anger. "I don't know what you're talking about. Get off my property?" "See, here's the thing." Jake didn't move. "We've been watching your house for 4 days, documented 17 incidents of physical aggression, and tonight you were just about to hurt her again." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "They'd been watching?" Marcus's face went purple. "That's harassment. I'll call the cops." "Please do." Tommy pulled out his phone. "We've got video evidence, photos, timestamps, a witness statement from a concerned student. The cops would love to see it." "This is insane." Marcus tried to slam the door, but Jake's boot was in the jam. "You're going to step outside, away from Miss Mitchell. You're going to listen to what we have to say, and then you're going to make the smartest decision of your life." "Or what?" "We've already sent copies of everything we documented to the local police, the school board, and Miss Mitchell's family," Jake said. "So you can either come outside and talk, or we can let the legal system handle it. Your choice." Marcus stepped outside, pulling the door partially closed. "Sarah," Jake called through the gap. "Lock the door. Call a friend. We'll handle this." Sarah did as instructed, her hands trembling. Through the window she watched the 3 men in the driveway. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked to his car and drove away without looking back. Jake knocked gently. "Miss Mitchell? It's safe. Can we talk?" Sarah opened the door slowly. Up close, Jake Morrison was even more intimidating. Well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered with tattoos covering his arms, but his dark eyes were kind. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" No, not emergency hurt." Sarah couldn't form coherent sentences. "Who are you? Why were you watching my house?" "A little girl named Emma left me a note," Jake said simply. "Said she thought bad men were hurting her teacher, asked me to help. So we did." Sarah's legs gave out. She sat hard on the floor, tears streaming. "Emma? Emma Rodriguez?" "Smart kid, observant, brave." "Oh, God!" Sarah buried her face in her hands. "I thought I was hiding it." Emma noticed. Tommy crouched down, keeping a respectful distance. And she was right to be worried. "He's gone now," Jake added. "We explained to him that we have documented evidence. We told him if he ever comes near you again, We'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man he is, and he'll have to deal with us." "Why would you do this?" Sarah whispered. "You don't know me. You're—" "Hell's Angels," Jake finished. "Yeah, not usually the guys people trust for help." He pulled out the note. "But an 8-year-old girl saw something wrong and asked us to help, and we don't walk away from that. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Bike Diaries. We bring you stories that prove heroism comes in all forms, that courage isn't measured by size or age, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever noticed something important that others missed? Your story might inspire someone else." Sarah read Emma's note, fresh tears spilling. The careful handwriting, the pure concern. It broke something open in her chest. "I should have left him months ago," she said. "It's not your fault," Tommy said firmly. "Abuse never is. You survived. That takes strength." Jake extended his hand. "Let us help you up. And then let's talk about what comes next. You've got resources, women's shelters, legal aid, counseling. We'll connect you, and we'll make sure you're safe." Sarah took his hand. "Why do you care? Really?" Jake was quiet. Then, "I grew up watching my old man beat my mother. When I was 15, she finally left him. Best decision she ever made. I swore then that if I ever saw another woman in that situation, I'd do something about it. Also," Tommy added, "that kid Emma guilt-tripped us into helping, and you don't disappoint an 8-year-old who's brave enough to approach a Hell's Angel." Despite everything, Sarah found herself laughing through her tears. "She is something special." "So are you," Jake said quietly. "You teach kids. You inspire them. Emma clearly adores you. You deserve to be safe, to be happy, and now you will be." 3 months later, Sarah stood outside Ridgemont Elementary at dismissal, no longer tense or watching over her shoulder. Marcus had taken a job in another state, encouraged by Jake's documentation being shared with his employer. The divorce was finalized. Sarah was in therapy, rebuilding her life. Emma ran up, waving a paper. "Miss Mitchell, I got 100 on my spelling test." "That's wonderful, Emma." Sarah crouched down for a hug. "I'm so proud of you." "I've been practicing. Jake said attention to detail is important." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "Jake?" "The motorcycle man." Emma pointed to where Jake Morrison sat on his Harley. "He comes by sometimes. Mom says he's making sure we're all safe." Sarah's heart squeezed. Jake had been checking in regularly. He'd helped her find legal aid, connected her with a support group, even helped her move to a new apartment with better security. Emma's mother called, and the girl ran off. Sarah found herself walking to where Jake sat. "Hey," she said softly. Jake's face lit up. "Hey yourself, how you doing?" "Better. Good, actually." Sarah tucked her hair behind her ear. "Thank you. For everything. For believing a child when adults didn't." "You're not a stranger anymore," Jake pointed out. They stood in comfortable silence. Then Sarah gathered her courage. "There's a teacher's appreciation dinner next Friday. Would you want to come, as my guest?" Jake's surprise was evident. "You sure? I'm not exactly PTA material." "You're hero material," Sarah corrected. "To me and to Emma. Plus, I think it would be good for people to see that heroes come in all forms, even leather-wearing, motorcycle-riding ones." Jake's smile was slow and genuine. "Then yeah, I'd be honored." 6 months later, Emma stood in front of her class for show and tell. She held up a photograph, Jake on his motorcycle, Sarah beside him, both smiling. "This is my friend Jake," Emma announced proudly. "He's a Hell's Angel, which means he rides motorcycles and looks scary, but he's actually really nice. Last year I noticed my teacher was being hurt by someone. None of the adults would listen to me, but Jake did. He helped her get safe. She looked at the class. Jake says heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes the smallest person has the biggest impact. I think that's true. I was small, but I made a difference. Anyone can if they're brave enough to try. The class erupted in applause. After school, Emma ran to where Jake was waiting. I told them about you, about being a hero. Kid, I'm not a hero. I just paid attention. That's what heroes do, Emma insisted. They pay attention when others don't. They believe people when no one else will. Jake crouched down. You know what? You're right. And you're the biggest hero in this story, Emma. You spoke up. You saved your teacher's life. We saved her together, Emma corrected. Sarah approached, and Jake stood to greet her with a kiss that made Emma giggle. Ready to go home? Sarah asked. Yeah. Jake took her hand. Let's go home. As they walked to Jake's truck, Emma skipped ahead. Jake looked at Sarah. You know what's funny? I came to this town for a business deal. Never expected to find a reason to stay. And now? Now I can't imagine being anywhere else? He squeezed her hand. All because a brave little girl left a note on my bike. Sarah smiled. Best note anyone's ever written. Thank you for watching. If this story reminded you to trust your instincts, to speak up when something feels wrong, and to never underestimate the power of paying attention, please share it. Subscribe to Bike Diaries for more stories that prove heroes are everywhere. Courage comes in all forms, and sometimes the smallest person in the room has the biggest impact. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Emma's place? In the parking lot, Emma climbed into the back seat, already chattering about tomorrow's field trip. Jake and Sarah exchanged a look. Gratitude, love, and wonder at how completely their lives had changed. All because one observant child had refused to stay silent. All because one intimidating stranger had chosen to listen. All because sometimes heroes really do come in the most unexpected packages.